Hi there, can everyone hear me? All right, I think we're good to go. Let me turn on the comments here. Okay. Sonia, good afternoon. Can you hear me? All right. I just became aware that at 4 o'clock today, so in about 15 minutes, the State Board of Education is going to review a policy and put it up. Well, it's the first reading, and they're going to determine if we're going to adopt diversity, inclusion, and equity standards into Idaho's post-secondary, so our colleges and university system. And folks, I mean, it all sounds so great. Of course, we all strive to be accepting and embrace diversity in our country and everything that we do. And Idaho is a diverse state that has people of so many different backgrounds and from so many different areas. But I want you to know that this is something else entirely. And so I want to take some time and educate you guys on exactly what's happening at the State Board of Education, and I encourage you guys to stay abreast of what developments are occurring with them and speak out on these issues, because if we're not going to, nobody else will. So here's the document that's up for the first reading today that they'll be voting on. And this is a policy, board policy, a State Board of Education policy on diversity, educational equity, and inclusion. So commonly you'll hear it across the country. I like to summarize it: diversity, inclusion, and equity. And the acronym for that is DIE. And these kind of policies, make no mistake about it, these kind of policies will be the death of the American dream. This is nothing more than Marxist schemes, socialist schemes, being veiled as some attempt to improve society. And it's all a lie. So let me read you this what this says. It says, this policy is the result of board discussions around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the public school system in response to unfounded allegations of systemic indoctrination. So right out the gate, they're saying that all these claims, everything we've been talking about, is totally unfounded. Well, I have a few questions for the State Board of Education, and I hope that as a candidate for governor in this state, that I'll get the opportunity to address that. So here, I want to share something with you, and I hope that we have the provosts and deans over at Boise State University watching this. The first thing, so for one of my unfounded claims, is there is a racial inventory quiz that Boise State University distributes. And here's one of the questions on that quiz. And this is exactly the stuff that they do not want to talk about. It says, in America, the rise of the idea of white supremacy was tied most directly to, and these are the multiple choice that you have for this quiz. A, Indian removal. B, slavery. C, the Declaration of Independence. D, the U.S. Constitution. Or E, ancient Greece. And I'll be darned if the correct answer on this quiz that Boise State University distributes is C, the Declaration of Independence. So I don't know how that's an unfounded claim, but it's right there. You can still go and get this quiz off the BSU website. They are promoting hatred, nothing more than hatred of our country. They want to see the destruction of it. Make no mistake about it. Here's another thing to back up some of my, what they're calling unfounded claims. Here it is, the Boise State University Library has its inclusive excellence section. And I want you to see the books that they are cramming down the throats of our students and our rising generation. The first one, The Activist's Handbook. The second one, Muddying the Waters. The third, this is interesting, The Revolution Will Not Be Funded. Interesting. Seems like they're pretty interested in revolution in this country. Oh, number 4, you should love this. Number 4 is none other than Saul Lelinski's Rules for Radicals, which, by the way, the first page on Rules for Radicals Saul Lelinski dedicated that book to Lucifer. Don't take my word for it. Go and look at it yourself. And the last one, when we fight, we win. So I just wanted to share some of those unfounded claims here from, I'm picking on BSU a little bit. Here you go from Idaho State University, right? It talks about how they stand in solidarity against systemic racism and the resulting injustices and violence towards our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, students and colleagues. And so they go on to say, this is Idaho State University. Every day, these individuals face acts of white entitlement and the effects of micro and macro aggressions. We acknowledge the long-entrenched structural violence that is embedded in the legal and law enforcement system, disproportionately impacting BIPOC communities. And then it goes on to say, any statement of anti-racist solidarity is hollow without sustainable, concrete measures of action to make systemic changes and redress the manifestations of colonialism and racism. So that's right there. Those are just a few examples that I want you to be aware of about this policy and why they can claim that there's no evidence to back it up. But, and I like what Harry just said, wake up, America, before it's too late. You're darn right. We are going to see the destruction of this country if we don't speak out against this. I'll hurry up. I know time is short, but this policy, and I encourage you to read it, all 4 institutions currently have policies and procedures, as well as specific efforts and activities for promoting DIE policies, diversity, inclusion, and equity. This policy, interesting, what stakeholders they connected with to develop it. This policy was developed through conversation with leaders of the educational institutions, so the president of the colleges. It was also reviewed by members of the Idaho Indian Education Committee, the Hispanic Commission for Idaho, and the members of Instruction, Research, and Student Affairs Committee of the board. So they're taking a lot of input, but there's other stuff going on in the state right now, talking about critical race theory and social justice and education. And they didn't talk to any of them. No, they just went and talked to the social justice activists themselves. It goes on to say, it defines what those words mean, but I can promise you they don't mean what they want you to think it means. It says, first one, or one of the ones they define is educational equity is the assurance that each member of an educational community has equitable opportunities, including individual access to the resources. Well, here's another interesting resource that you ought to consider. This is a transgender resource guide that Boise State, you see BSU, right? Boise State University puts this out. And what do they talk about? Oh, they talk about, how you can go get counseling as young as 12 to go change your sex. They talk about where to go in the community, how to get new identification, how to change your ID card at the school. I mean, folks, this goes on and on and on. I literally could go on for hours. And I'll share one last thing in this before I finish my remarks. But they close out with this policy and they say, this policy is consistent with the board's commitment to freedom of expression. Folks, make no mistake. The Constitution does not grant you the freedom of expression. It grants you the freedom of speech. There's a very big difference in that. You must understand, you as an American do not have the freedom of expression. You cannot strip down butt naked and run through the park. That is obscene, right? We've had obscenity laws here in America before this nation was even founded. But these people want you to accept the idea that you have the freedom of expression, so that when you go and you start throwing bricks through windows, you're just expressing yourself. It's okay. You have the freedom to express yourself. You're angry. They don't believe in private property rights. They don't believe in the American dream. These people want to destroy all the things that made this the greatest nation on earth. And it's not that we don't have issues in our past. Every nation does. But there's a difference. When you love something, you want to improve it. When you hate something, you want to destroy it. Our universities teach our students to hate our country. Make no mistake. And we have to begin to fight back and address it. So what I want to do today is, because the State Board of Education is going to be meeting right now, I would ask that any State Board of Education member in the state of Idaho who vote to approve this die policy for our universities, I ask that you immediately resign from the State Board of Education. And I'm demanding that our governor, Brad Little, call for the formal resignation of anybody who votes to support this. This is garbage. People, please, please do not just sit back and allow them to destroy this state. It will ruin it. We have to bring it to an end in Idaho if we're not going to do it anywhere else. And so I want to answer some of your guys' questions as well. We have some people commenting and people watching. I'm sorry that we didn't give you a lot of heads up, but such is life. We're out on the campaign trail, and this is something I wanted to speak out on immediately. Does anyone have any questions? Let me see here. All right. What time is it? Oh. So Ruthie asked, what's going on in K through 12? So this is less persistent in your primary schools than it is in higher education. Nonetheless, that doesn't mean it's non-existent. What's happening at the K-12 level is that there is new curriculum being dispersed, and it's very veiled in how it's just like how they're doing it now. Oh, you have the freedom of expression. They make a minor deviation, but it's just like at a train track. You can move massive amounts, thousands of tons, and you make a minor deviation, right? And it change where it ends up in the country. It can end up in completely opposite sides of the country. So they are making these minor changes. It's not freedom of speech, it's freedom of expression. You know, they talk about, I saw a book being distributed at an elementary school in Star, how Kamala Harris is a hero, how she breaks the glass ceiling and this and that and the other. They want to promote fellow Marxists. And not all our teachers are like this, but some of them are, and we have to recognize, study the Chinese Cultural Revolution. See what happened in China. Mao Zedong's Red Guard, those were college students. Study the Chinese Cultural Revolution. It will scare you what can happen in a few short years on these university campuses. But somebody asked, they said, what can we do about it? There's two things. One, and Harry just said it too, you attend these meetings, so you can put input at the State Board of Education. So go ahead now. You won't be able to have input on today's meeting, but it's only its first reading. It will have other readings. So go and submit, click the link so that you can have some time for public testimony. But the second thing is, folks, this is why I'm running for governor. I will not send my son or my daughter to a school to be indoctrinated like this. I'm running for governor because I want to fight these Marxists in a way they've never seen. And leadership in Idaho is corrupt and complacent. They don't even know what they're in for right now. This is why I'm running for governor. We're going to fight it, and we're going to win. We've been getting incredible reception across the state, and we're not slowing down. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this. I'm going to go ahead and finish it out. I'm only going to take 15 minutes of your time. The State Board of Education will be meeting right now. Thank you guys.